Welcome back to the Aussie Shed, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Project Fairlady. So what we're going to do today, folks, is we're going to take up where we left off on the last episode, which was working on all these front-end components. Last episode, we tore apart the basic front hub configuration, getting out the stub axles and cleaning them up and all that sort of stuff, and getting all that section apart. Now what we're going to get into is the Kingpin assemblies, which forms the top half of your front suspension components. But before we do that, folks, I'll just give you a quick update on what else I've been doing on the Fairlady. So I've been continuing to toil away on the shell, particularly in the engine bay area of the Fairlady. I've been just getting everything ready so that it's all sorted for when the time comes to paint it. I've been redoing all the seam sealer in the areas where we had to dig it out to clean up all the areas that were either had surface rust or the big, the big brake fluid leaks that we had here previously and all that sort of stuff. I've also been taking care of a few areas on the firewall there that needed repairs, where a previous owner or a previous person that worked on the car had gone crazy on the firewall there with a bloody big hammer trying to get clearance for one of the dump pipes, and had sort of smashed a whole heap of it in. I've had to pull out a whole heap more of the interior to get to the back of that, to be able to properly beat all the dents and everything out, so that it's basically, just all steel with just a slight skim of body filler over the top of it, just to clean it up, But really good repair. Also, on the top of the transmission tunnel, it was quite dented and heavily gouged, where someone had probably pulled the motor out through the top, through the top of the engine bay, and caught the bell housing bolts or part of the bell housing on the top of the transmission tunnel when they lifted it, because they didn't properly have the transmission lowered down enough, and done a bit of damage up there, which again involved getting more of the interior out, beating that all back down, working it with hammers and dollies and getting it all right before just sort of cleaning it up. Now all that stuff's sitting there in epoxy primer and everything, so that's pretty much the whole engine bay area has had all the repairs that I plan on doing finished on it. I've also removed all the remnants of the Stone Guard underbody spray that was coming through into the engine bay from underneath of the car. It came through into the lower sections there of the front rails, and also it was coming through onto the firewall from underneath. I've since taken all that back to bare metal to the first seam, which is about 150 mil in from the front of the firewall underneath, and sanded and scraped it all off the rails and everything, and then sort of re-primed it, just because all of that area is going to be in body colour, which is the new colour of the car, which you'll see when I start putting it on. Just so we get a really nice sort of detailed finish in there, and it gives me a definite line now where I'm going to stop the underbody sealant when I redo that, because that'll be coming back through, but at least I have a definite point now, instead of the two things just blending over the top of each other randomly under the car. So yeah, been quite a bit of work doing that. So generally, folks, whatever you see me doing on YouTube here, I'm probably doing 2 or 3 other things in the background at the same time. I've also fixed up these inner guard areas. We had a bit of a look at these areas before, folks, when I had it in primer from doing all the repairs before. So since doing that, you can see it's all nice and black in there now. So it's firstly been hit with a rust converter. We've redone the seam sealer. It's then had a zinc primer put on it. It's then been hit with an epoxy primer, and now it's got 2 coats of satin black Paul 15 on it. So it's basically ready to get the Stone Guard texture finish put on it once we're set up to do that, which will happen when both inner guards are done and the rest of the underneath of the car as we bring it through to the new painted section. So yeah, always lots going on, folks. I also have both the dust shields now ready for paint. On the end of last week's video, you would have seen me sort of get the second one sort of half set up, and so it's now fully all welded up and got epoxy primer on it, ready to sort of paint the 2 of those when I'm ready to go crazy with a bit of paint. So that's another good thing. Alright, so back to the Kingpin bearings. Let's move in a little bit closer. So as you would remember, folks, this Kingpin is in a pretty sad state. It's had water get jammed in there at some point, and it's probably been in there for a long time. One of these seals, or both these seals, has possibly failed and allowed water to get in there, and it's just kind of sat in there corroding it. When you turn it, the bearing does feel quite notchy. There are places where it sort of tightens up and then releases. I've already done the one for the other side, folks, just to give me a little bit of practice before I go filming it, so I don't do anything too stupid and embarrass myself on camera. But the other one was, the Kingpin itself is in quite good condition. I'll just go and grab it and I'll give you a bit of a look. So this is what I pulled out of the other side when I did it, and you can see the Kingpin is in much better condition than this one. It had a little bit of surface rust on it here, just a couple of little light spots really, but nothing major. Absolutely reusable. But as you can see, this one, don't know about that. I've got a feeling that this one's going to end up in the bin, but we need to get it apart anyway, folks, so we can fit new bearing assemblies and whatnot. But I imagine these Kingpins are something that doesn't really get a lot of attention in the Z32, just because it's, you know, it's not really something that the bearings are really going to wear out on like a wheel bearing. It doesn't, you know, the bearings are under nowhere near the amount of stress that something like a wheel bearing is, because it's just, you know, steering of the vehicle that sort of turns this. But the one that I just showed you, the nice shiny looking one, the bearing in it was actually pretty bad. Like it had a really, it was worse than this one actually. It had a really stiff spot in it where it was just very hard to, like it was sort of quite easy to move, and then it would bind up. I don't know whether that was in an area that would be noticeable on the steering, particularly with like a power assisted rack like is on this. It may well mask something like a bit of a notchy Kingpin bearing. But they are old, all the seals are rooted as you can see, and this is the kind of stuff that you find. So, you know, all these vehicles being of this age, there's all sorts of stuff I reckon that are lurking underneath the skin that a lot of the owners aren't even aware of on these things, just because it's areas that you don't really take too much notice of. But anyway, enough of me carrying on. Let's get this apart and have a bit of a look at it. So the first thing we've got to do is get this cap off the back here. This covers a nut which keeps the whole sort of unit sort of pulled together, you know. And what I did discover from doing the last one is it's very hard to hold this to actually get that nut loose, and it probably would be better to have the front hub still intact and still mounted on this taper to be able to kind of lock this so that you can get that nut undone and then sort of get this off. 6 of one, half dozen of the other though, folks. Like it's easier to get the hub off this way than it is with them with this sort of undone here, and I don't know. But I have no choice in this matter anymore, folks. I've already taken it apart, so I've just got to suck it and see. I did work out a way to get the other one off. It was, you know, touch and go whether I was going to be able to get it. But we'll see how we go on this one. You know, we'll either get it or we don't, and we'll have to try something else. I was trying to avoid putting heat on it, because I could have just heated the nut up with the Aussie and probably got it loose. But I didn't really want to put heat on it, folks, because I was worried about it affecting the hardness of this Kingpin, you know. But this one looks like it's going to be rooted anyway. But we'll see. I'll see if we can crack it off, and if we can't, well, we'll look at other things. So anyway, let's get this cap off, folks. So you just got to get underneath this sort of back edge there, and you know, just get something in there that you can use to start tapping this off. Comes off pretty easy at this stage. You can see it's already gapping, and there we go, she's off. And that is the nut that we now have to get off. The only way we can do that is we've got to lock this to be able to crack that. So first thing I'm going to do, get all the grease off this so we can actually get hold of it and see what's going on. And we'll get set up, eh? So this is what I did on the last one, folks. I just got both the nuts off these from both sides and put them together on this thread here and locked them together, you know, and then use that to be able to sort of lock it to get this. But there isn't a whole heap of thread engagement that you can get onto this. It's yeah, it's a little bit dicey, but it worked and I didn't damage anything. Although I'm already in a pickle, folks. That thread is just caked up with rusty crap. Give me a second, guys. I'll just throw this on the wire wheel and clean this up so I can get one of these nuts wound up as far as I can in that direction. I'll be back. Okay, that's looking a little bit nicer already. Come on, baby. What's going on there? Thread looks a little bit, a little bit fat in that area. I'll try this nut. That seems to be going a little bit better. 22. So, yeah, this will be the trick, folks. Or if we can hold it in a vise. Oh, we've done it, folks, we've done it. Saw it start to move then. Yes. Oh, well, that's not too bad. I was a bit worried that was going to be harder to do than the other side, folks. And I'd make a real fool out of myself. But it turns out, it was easier. Isn't that great? Alrighty. Now we just got to get this guy undone, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, I don't think. Ah, there we go. Beautiful. Beautiful. Alrighty, so now we've got this washer here, this sort of keyed washer. It comes off next. I was just going to say then it should just slide out, but it already slid out, folks. And that's the baby right there. There is your Z32 Kingpin, and you can see that's the first seal, which actually just sits in on the Kingpin. And there's another seal just on the housing there, which we'll have to get off as well. But you can see all the crud in there, folks. Crud City. So I think this seal's, you know, pretty cactus. Have all new seals and stuff for it, obviously. Actually looks pretty superficial, that pitting there. We'll see. I'll clean it up on the wire wheel because it is only a tapered fit. It's not like something that has to be sort of super precise like a ball joint sleeve or anything like that. I'll have to have a really good look at this guy and see if we can keep it or whether we're just going to get another one. Yeah. Right, folks, we'll get this seal out of here out now. There's a bit of an edge there. We might be able to, there you go, just tap it out with our old friend Mr. Cold Chisel. Hey! And that's that guy, folks. Again, looking pretty well past its use by date. And as I mentioned, folks, we do have all of the, you know, all our new wheel bearings and stuff, all genuine Nissan stuff, all the Kingpin bearings, all the seals, all that sort of stuff. New wheel studs and everything. It's all sitting there on the bench ready to go. So these bearings, folks, they should just knock out with a hammer. You don't really need to press these out. So I'm just using a fairly decent size punch, you know. I'm just going to smack these out. Go in with the bottom first. This sort of style of bearing, folks, it doesn't really take a whole heap to get them in and out. Not like a wheel bearing or anything like that. This is moving right from the start. It's almost out. There you go. So that's the top one out. Now, same principle with this bottom one, folks, but it's actually a bit trickier because it's quite hard to sort of get in there with this, and there's not really much of an edge or anything to get a tool onto to knock it out. Can't get the press in there, like you can't sort of get anything in here, you know, to do it sort of hydraulically to get it out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to knock the race apart from the other side, get rid of this this centerpiece here of the race and all the balls, get that out. Then we're going to sort of take the carrier out, because we'll then have a little bit of an edge that we can get onto, and I can sort of see what I'm doing a little bit better. Oh, it's good to just sort of clean up as you go, folks, just so you can see what the hell you're doing, you know. Which for an old man like me with my old eyes, it's very hard to do sometimes. You can see that the centre of that's coming out quite easily. Hey! And that's that guy, folks. So as you can see in there, I don't know if you can, but all the balls, you can see all the balls. I'm embarrassed. There you go, folks. That's all of our balls in there. We'll pick all those out. And, you know, actually I'll pull this is the seal off the bearing. We'll pop that out. Maybe, yep. And that'll give us easier access to the balls. Oh my God, folks. It's like eating caviar at a fancy restaurant. Look at it. Huh. Ah, the memories, the memories. There we go. Huh. I've got to stop drinking while I'm working, folks. You guys will stop taking me seriously. Now, this is the tricky one, folks. Getting this guy out. We've got to go in through the back and sort of get onto this section that we just got those ball bearings out of, because we can't actually get behind the edge of this this race. So we've got to kind of just get on the edge, which is why we knocked that center part out and knocked all the balls out. I might have to turn this around the other way in the vise, folks, just because the other vise behind it is sort of blocking me a little bit. So I think I might just spin it around. Like I said, it's a little bit tricky, this one. I think we need to get our old friend Mr. Lumphammer back out. And I think I'll step down in cold chisel sizes just to get a little bit more bite. So I'm dropping down, folks, from that to that, just because it'll get me, the edges will have a little bit more bite on them from being a bit smaller. Ah! I think we've got a little bit of movement. She's rather awkward, folks. A little bit of movement, not much though. Oh yeah, we've got probably a millimetre of separation in there now. Still can't get anything in there, unfortunately, but we'll just sort of keep persevering with what we're doing, folks. I'll move into a more grippy area on the vise here. Oh, we're getting there now, folks. Got about a mil stick out now. And I'm able to get in behind the back of the race, you know, instead of being on that front edge. Here we go. I'll set you up at this end so you can see the time when it evacuates. You know what I mean. And there it is, the vinegar stroke. So that's it, folks. That's how you get the Kingpin and Kingpin bearing assembly apart. There, if we were just going to replace it all, that's what we'd be doing now. We'd be just sort of rebuilding it and replacing it. However, I'm not doing that right now, folks, because what I'm going to be doing is sending this off for powder coating along with all the other stuff. And you can see it's in a pretty sad sort of a state. You know, that's all paint runs and crap and rust, and there's lots and lots of welding spatter on these, I have noticed. The other one that I did before, off camera the other day, I've been over it with a grinder and just gotten rid of all the welding spatter and sort of cleaned up a lot of the original welds and just given it a really good detail before it goes off to be powder coated, because the powder coating's obviously not going to do any of that. He's just going to hit it with his sandblaster and coat it. And any of that sort of stuff's really going to probably stand out. So anything I'm sending off to get powder coated, folks, I always generally detail it first just with a grinder or whatever. And yeah, so that's what's going to be happening with these. But we're pretty much out of time now, folks. This took a lot longer than I thought it would to sort of go through all this. But there's always next week, folks. There's always next week. As always, folks, hope you liked the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you're enjoying Project Fairlady, remember to bloody subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you get notifications of new videos. And as always, folks, I'll bloody well see you on the next one. Cheers.